So The Hobbit, The Battle of Five Armies just came out here last week on the 11th instead of the 17th, which is very strange to me because that usually never happens. We usually either get it like a month late or right on the day. But I was lucky enough to go watch it on the midnight release day on Thursday morning, 12 in the morning. And as I was going over there, I noticed that there was a severe lack of excitement and energy on my part as to go watch it. And once I went, I watched it and I came out, I started wondering why I didn't have any of the excitement that I had when I went to watch the original trilogy of The Lord of the Rings in the movie theater. So as I talk about this, I'm going to show you in the background basically the entire screenplay of the movie in poster form, as in all the posters that were released stitched together. And credit for this image goes to screenart.com. They stitched it together, I think. It's where I found it, so I'm going to give them credit. So, the movie literally starts off exactly where the second movie left off. Smaug is in the air and he is headed to Lake Town to wreck house. And that is exactly what happens. And up to there, I'm completely on board. I love seeing Smaug just being alive and being himself, his superimposing self, raining death and destruction on the villagers. And it's not something we have seen a lot in movies very lately. I believe the last time we saw a decent dragon movie was a long time ago in Dragonheart. So that part of the movie is great. It's not the whole I shoot one arrow and he goes down thing. Oh yeah, spoilers. That is how basically he goes down. If you recall, in the second movie, Frodo notices one scale missing from Smaug's underside. That is basically how he goes down. So as we move along and Smaug gets taken down and everything, we move along to the second main part, which is, in my opinion, the best part of the entire movie. It's where we find Gandalf still imprisoned in, I think it was Barad-dûr? I'm not really sure. Back where he went exploring in the second movie. And this is where suddenly we are thrown for a loop here, because in the poster we see Elrond and Saruman and Galadriel. We're like, what? These three huge names and powerful beings from the entire universe are banding together to save Gandalf. Now you know something heavy is going to go down here. And something very deep does go down there. It's probably the best part of the entire movie. And it really was the best scene in basically in all the trilogy, in my opinion, because we finally get to see these three guys do something. Because all throughout The Lord of the Rings, we hear that they are basically the three most powerful beings in Middle-earth. But we never see them do anything except in flashbacks, and that doesn't really count. So this time we actually see them do something, and it is absolutely amazing. Even Galadriel does something, and she is basically the key player in this entire battle that takes place there. So that part alone is worth watching the movie. So the movie chugs along, and we're finally back to the dwarves. They've taken back Erebor from Smaug, and we realize, or as the viewers, that something is not right with Thorin, as does Bilbo and everybody else, but Thorin himself doesn't see it. And that is basically what leads to the Battle of the Five Armies starting earlier than it could have. But anyway, there is still a lot of treasure, and we get to see a little bit more of the city, although not as much as in the second movie. It's a little disappointing in that part, but that's just the way it goes. And then, so apparently they decided to keep Tauria, I think they named her. They made a female elf in the movies. I'm not really a fan of her. She shouldn't even be in the movie. Like Legolas, you can make an argument for him being there because they literally went through his homeland, Mirkwood. So it can be argued that he could be there, and yeah. But Tauria, again, is just there. She's filler. She brings nothing worthwhile to the entire movie. And it... keep moving along. Right here, then we have what looks to be like the beginning of the actual battle. And all of a sudden we have elves, and suddenly like, what? So yeah, it's called the Battle of Five Armies because we have dwarves, elves, humans, we have the orcs that are invading, and there is a fifth army that I can't spoil because it's basically quite literally the end of the movie, but that is why it's called the Battle of Five Armies. I think. I can't remember if the fifth army I'm thinking about is actually the fifth army, but that's what goes down. So Mr. I am so very selfish Elfkin here decides to show up to take the mountain for himself or something inside it, as we knew from the very beginning of the second movie. Well, not beginning, but since he threw the dwarves into the dungeon in the second movie, we knew he wasn't going to be a team player and he was all for himself, and that's rather rare for an elf, considering he's actually one of the more powerful elves. Like my friends who are very big Lord of the Rings fans told me that I think in the Silmarillion or in some of the other side stories, it's actually revealed that this guy actually killed an ancient dragon by himself or something similar to those lines. And we actually get a small amount of confirmation from this in the second movie when he's arguing with Thorin and he reveals his entire right side of his face is scarred or burned. So that's interesting. So yeah, they show up, the battle starts, and suddenly we have the white orc that appeared in the first movie and his subcommander, and apparently they are far more powerful than anyone else in the movie because every time they get into a fight, they basically win it without even trying, which is very disappointing. It's like they were protected with some kind of protagonist shield in this time, which is very interesting considering you would hope to make a battle look interesting, let's see, deadly for both sides, but the orcs just don't seem to try hard enough to make it realistic. It's just, they're there, they wave their weapons, and everybody is dying around them, which is very, very disappointing. And then near the end, there's really nothing else to say there. Bilbo's there, he actually does his part. He doesn't really fight as everyone else does. He's more of a messenger because, come on, he's got the one ring, he can go invisible. Although we are finally shown that just having the ring isn't enough. You actually have to pay attention, and it's very hard to pay attention inside the, let's see, ghost worldly place that the ring takes you to, because everything is blurry. So we actually see how Bilbo still has to dodge through the battle to run around and everything. And then Gandalf finally shows up, and, well, not finally, he actually shows up around half the movie, and he's trying to convince everybody that the orc army that we know has been building up since the second movie is coming, but nobody wants to listen to him because everybody's focused on the mountain, and we're like, I can't believe they're all so greedy. But that is where the main plot of the movie comes in. And it's actually a very interesting plot because we haven't seen it, I haven't seen it personally anywhere else. It's the fact that Smaug himself was actually the reason that this entire thing happened. Not the fact that he went and destroyed everything, but the fact that he sat on that mountain of gold for so many years. As the movie goes on, it's revealed that Thorin is actually infected with what they are calling dragon sickness, which basically makes him as greedy as Smaug himself, which is very interesting. I wasn't really sure how they were going to portray it, or if that's how it is portrayed in the book, but it worked, and it proved like for being a very big obstacle for Thorin and company to overcome, and it really was well played out. Because you could see him physically on Thorin, how it was weighing down on him, but he couldn't tell, but everybody else did. And they were torn between their loyalty to Thorin and doing the right thing, and a whole other mess comes up. But now that that's out of the way, I can tell you why I wasn't particularly excited for the movie. I mean, it's a good movie, it's got great effects, there's a lot of action all over the movie, and that's basically what a lot of people want. But once I started thinking about it, I came to the conclusion that the reason I wasn't particularly excited to watch this one is because there was no longer a sense of discovery in anywhere, except in the battle involving Elrond, Saruman, and Galadriel. That is literally the only new thing that happens in the movie. Every other location in the movie we've already seen. Let's see, the Lake Town we've already seen. The inside of the Kingdom of Erebor, we saw a lot better of it in the second movie. Let's see, the area where, Legolas and Tario go look out things looks a lot like Mordor from the first trilogy, so that's nothing new. We've seen elf armies before, they still look the same, they still fight the same, so there's nothing new there. The orc armies look exactly like every other orc or Uruk-hai or other army in every other Lord of the Rings movie. So there's nothing new. They look identical, they fight identical, and there's nothing particularly interesting about watching them fight. Then it's only near the end of the movie that we start seeing them fight in a snowy area, as we can see in the poster, and that's the first real scenario change we have in the entire movie. But it really isn't enough because we've seen dwarves fight. We saw Gimli fight in the original Lord of the Rings trilogy, and it was actually better watch him fight because we actually got wide shots and we saw him swinging around, we saw him jumping, we saw him take hits and stuff. And it was a lot more fun to watch him fight. This time, it's just like the orcs are just falling over to Thorin and company, and it's just like they're really that weak. They don't feel powerful. They don't feel threatening. They just fall over when they touch them with their sword. We don't even see them aim for gaps in the armor. They just swing, hit armor, slash, and suddenly the orc dies. So very, very disappointing. And even the end of the movie, we kind of already seen because his Rice character already appeared in the original Lord of the Rings trilogy. And that is what I think that it was lacking in this entire movie, a sense of discovery. Because they decided to basically make it a trilogy, they wasted all the discovery process in the first two. There are no new locations, we've seen everything before, and that, I believe, was one of the strengths of the Lord of the Rings movies. Every movie had a new location, a new enemy, new creatures to look at, and I was always wondering what new thing was going to pop up. And that is completely missing in this one. And that really is kind of a tragedy because it really took away a lot of the feel from a fantasy movie. You want to discover things that don't happen in real life or see in real life. And that really lowered a lot the quality of the movie for me. Now, I'm not saying it's a bad movie. It's definitely a good movie. The scenery is awesome. We still get some wide shots of some very good looking places. Now, oh yeah, another part that I think was not particularly well done was character development. And the main reason for that is that outside of Thorin and Balin, which is the dwarf with the white beard, the old one, there is very little actual character development for any of the other dwarves. We never know anything new about them. We don't know about their lives, about their families. We don't know where they come from, their hometown. We don't know why they're doing this other than to take back their own kingdom, but personal reasons, we learn nothing about them. So they are just there. They're just pieces to move around and they fight, and that's all they do. We learn nothing new about them. And that's very, very sad. Actually, I can't remember his name, but the archer from Lake Town, we learn more about him than we do about any of the dwarves outside of Thorin. And that we actually know more about Smaug than about the dwarves. And the dwarves are the main characters, they're the protagonists, and we know nothing about them. So that's why there's so little character development. Only Thorin, Bilbo, obviously, and the bowmen get character development. Nobody else gets anything worthwhile. So you watch a movie, you're enjoying it, but you notice that you're not learning anything new about them. And that is really, really, really sad because all throughout the original Lord of the Rings trilogy, we are learning new and more things about every single character. There's 9 of them, and we learn a lot about every single one of them. Here, there's 13. Yeah, it could be a little bit harder. Plus Gandalf, plus the bowmen, plus the Legolas and Tario. And we still don't learn anything new about anyone else other than Thorin and Bilbo. And that just really lowered my enjoyment of the movie quite a bit because I was watching it, and there was nothing that put me on the edge of my seat. There was nothing that amazed me. There was nothing new for me to say, hey, that's new. So yeah, that is my opinion on the Battle of Five Armies. It's visually a great movie. Story-wise, the battles are great, but the character development stopped at the end of the second movie. It's really, really sad. But it's still an enjoyable movie. It's still worth going watch. We can completely remove Tario from the equation. She does nothing, and she's just there because they wanted a female elf for some reason. But yeah, actually, even what's his name? Elf King Thandriel, I think, or whatever his name is. He gets more character development than any of the other dwarves outside of Thorin. That is how little development they get. We don't know more about Thandriel than we know about the dwarves. So yeah, that should probably get my point across. It's a good movie to go worth watching for the graphics, for the battle. There was only one actually new thing outside of Elrond and Saruman. There is one new thing we get to discover, and that is the way dwarves fight when they have an entire army with them. That was great to watch, but that is really it. We only discovered 2 new things, and everything else stayed the same. So yeah, that is my opinion on the Battle of Five Armies for the Hobbit trilogy. It's worth watching for the graphics. The story falls flat. There's nothing new. There's nothing to spike it. And the characters, they pretty much don't change. So, hope you enjoyed my quick review of the Hobbit Battle of Five Armies. Hopefully you find it useful in deciding whether you want to go watch the movie or not, and I will see you next time.